Welcome to the next video in the Discrete Math series, and in this video we are going to answer the questions that we left off in the previous video, and so here are the solutions. So for Proposition 1, Miami is the capital of Massachusetts. That is a proposition. It is either true or false, and in this particular case it turns out to be false. There's the proposition that Atlanta is in Georgia, so that's a proposition, true or false, and that one happens to be true. 2 plus 3 equals 5, right? So even if it's not written in sort of standard English, that is still an assertion of some kind of a fact, and therefore is a proposition, and that one in particular is true. This one is a proposition and is false. This one is a command, and therefore neither true nor false, therefore not a proposition. Can I ask you a question? That is a question, and therefore neither true nor false, it is not a proposition. 2 to the n equals 100. Since we don't know what n is here, then therefore this is meaningless and not a proposition. If we had some specification about what is n, it would become a proposition. But this, as it is stated, is not a proposition. Okay, let's continue on to some new concepts. So, by the way, these are just further answers, just move to the next page. But we're picking up here. So, now let's define the concept of a propositional variable. A propositional variable is an abstraction of a proposition, and it is often written, represented by a lowercase italics Latin letter like this P or this Q. Now, what does that mean, right? That's a very probably confusing description of what a propositional variable is. So let's take an example. So let's look at either the butler did it or it was the senator. This can be abstracted as, quote, either P or Q. P is the abstraction, that is to say, it is the removal of detail. That is generally what an abstraction is. The removal of detail, where the detail is the detail about the sentence, the butler did it, right? So P is abstracting that sentence clause. Q is abstracting this sentence clause. And so, yeah, that's our propositional variables, P and Q. They are abstractions of propositions. Okay, as we've already somewhat discussed, the truth value of a proposition is simply the fact of whether it is true or false. And okay, let's move on to negation. So if P is any proposition, then its negation is the proposition formed by asserting not P. That is to say, it's the denial of P. We often write it symbolically with this little tail symbol. If the value of the proposition were true, then the negation becomes false. If right, vice versa, if the truth value of P were false, then its negation is true. One way to think about what we're saying there is we have been talking about the negation being written onto the propositional variable, and that's a way of getting, like this is a new proposition, right? From the proposition P, you get the new proposition negation P. So that negation on a proposition gets you a new proposition. Well, we could also explain some of these ideas by simply writing the negation on the truth value itself of either true or false, right? Any proposition can be true or false, but it must be one of them and not both. So anyway, so we could say that when you negate T, where T basically represents any true proposition, the result, oops, how did that happen? Okay, the result is false. And where that false represents, just like the fact that the proposition is false or something like that. Okay. And conversely, the negation of false is true. Okay, let's do another exercise. So here, we're just going to exercise taking English sentences and properly writing their negation. So what I want you to do is I want you to take a sentence like Adam has an iPod, and then write down in the most natural possible English. We're not, right, I know I just introduced a bunch of things about propositional variables and negation symbolically and so on, but I do, at least for this exercise, just want to exercise staying in English, right? Let's just stick to English, no symbols, And I want you to take this sentence and write down the most natural English sentence, which is the negation of it. So write in English the negation of this sentence, and then do likewise here and here. I'll give a hint. What I intend for the student to do in this one is not to stick too closely to English, right? Don't take the the requirement that this be in some kind of official canonical English too seriously, right? So you can keep the numbers and the math all symbolic and write down sort of the most natural, nicest way of negating this sentence as well. Okay, and I'll show you what my solutions are in the next video.